background's loud. All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Hope everybody's having a blessed third week of Lent. If you can believe it, we're already in week 3. By the end of this week, we will be at the story of the prodigal son. It's unbelievable. Some of you are like, yeah, when you think it's flying, I'm dying. I'll tell you, life is what you make it, bro. So do what you can. So last week, we began a new series, which I am like super stoked about, the Autopsy of St. Augustine, which is an extremely morbid title, but it had, Augustine is famous for his confessions. The book Confessions is one of the greater spiritual literary works that we have in the church. There are many people who have read it, who talk about it being a fundamental part of their evolution and growth with God. And so this series is based on that and another book that I'm reading called On the Road with St. Augustine, which talks about his humanity and how he is such a human saint for us that we can all identify with. And I said this last week, this guy's a dumpster fire. You know, he is not the kind of person that just figures it out. He has to go through things. And so last week we talked about what strayed him, what pushed him away, and what made him fall. And what made him fall and tripped him up in his life was the idea of restlessness. Restlessness. St. Augustine was always restless. Where he lived was never good enough. He needed to go to the next thing every time. So it started in Tagaste, which was in Algeria, and then it went to Carthage, which was the pinnacle of philosophy and theology in his area in North Africa. And then that wasn't enough, so he went to Rome, and that wasn't enough, and he went to Milan. So it was never enough. Just like our ambition, it never ends if the ambition is all we focus on. And then we also talked about how he was constantly restless in affirmation and praise, that it wasn't enough to get the praise of his family or enough of his teachers or enough of the people that were around him. Not even the emperor of Rome was enough for Augustine. Constantly, because when you live by affirmation, you die by affirmation. And so it's important not to be married to the praise of men. And then we talked about his love of pleasure and how pleasure was never enough. It was never enough. He went from indulging in knowledge to indulging in physicality, which resulted in him having a child out of wedlock. He was a drunk. So he lived every which way, looking for the next thing to medicate him because it was never enough. No different than us. And what did St. Augustine learn in the end? He learned what he told us in the book of Confessions. Our hearts are restless until they rest in you. But what caused him to fall was the desire for the next thing. Now, you think that's where the story ends. No. There's actually more to his story. Because Augustine got lost. But after he got lost, in order for him to rise like he did and become the saint he became, he needed to die. He needed to die. I don't mean a physical death. He needed to die to himself. And so what we're going to meditate on by the grace of God today is what slayed Augustine. So first it was what strayed him. Today is what slayed him. What killed him. Okay? And what killed him was, I'm going to give you the reason, and then I'll tell you what it was. What killed him was that he couldn't be satiated. And because he couldn't become satiated or filled by the things that he was doing, it was like knives slowly cutting at him. And so what did he do? He kept trying more things, becoming more miserable and more miserable. What is that thing? It was stubbornness. It was stubbornness. Augustine's stubbornness is what killed him. Actually, they say even when he became a bishop, his stubbornness was one of the things that was his blessing and his curse. He knew he was right, or he always assumed he was right. I don't know where he gets that from. Or maybe where I get that from. But anyway. But it was his stubbornness that got him in trouble in his life. It's what really killed him. It's what led him to the edge of such deep misery. And so I want you guys to think about stubbornness. What does stubbornness mean to us? When we say someone is stubborn, what do we mean? What do we mean when we say someone is stubborn? I guess no one's ever called you that, huh? Great. I don't just have a group of you, I have a group of liars. That's good. Come on. Yeah. Difficult to change their mind, okay? Anybody else? Stubbornness. Huh? Disagreeable. Okay. Can you maybe elaborate on that? I like that, but can you elaborate on it? On inflexible convictions, okay? What do you got? Ignorance. Ooh, like that. Like that. So, of course, when we hear some of these awful words about stubbornness, Abuna, I'm not stubborn. I can be convinced. I'm not so inflexible that nobody can change my mind, right? Right? Not so right. See, the thing about stubbornness, and I talked about this with the grads at our GYP retreat, the thing about stubbornness is it's a slippery slope. We think it's this black and white thing. We think it's this black and white thing that, you don't listen to anybody. You won't let anybody convince you. You're insistent that your way is right. But stubbornness is a poison that we drink. It's a poison. Poison doesn't kill you instantly. If somebody hates you and they give you poison, they're going to give you a slow poison that's going to kill you slowly. That's going to dull your senses and bit by bit wear you down. This is what stubbornness is. Stubbornness is an unwillingness to hear, an unwillingness to speak, an unwillingness to change. Okay? I don't want to just hear others. Sometimes I don't want to hear any spiritual guide in my life. Every time my dad talks, blah, 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 fob. Really? Guy's been here for 30 years. Has to be fob? Has to be wrong? Really? Every time? Give me a break. Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Not sorry. Right? Or, oh, different generation. Boomer, whatever. But you know what? It doesn't just go with the ear. Sometimes it's the speaking. It's the, I don't agree with this, but I won't say anything. But when I didn't say anything, I judged your intelligence. I said I can't respect your opinion. And I'll just, yeah, you're a nice person. Yeah, that's really good insight, moron. That's also part of stubbornness. And then unwilling to change. Super scary. Oh, no, Abuna. I'll change for the right person. I'll change when God gives me the thing I really want. I'll change when my wife starts acting more polite, when my kids start to respect me, when my friends treat me like an equal. So your change is conditional, not on your heart, but the hearts of others. Welcome to the lie and the poison of stubbornness. The slow, ebbing drip of death that pours into you, where you rationalize that it's all just knowledge, and I just know a little bit more than this person, and this person becomes a group of people, and a group of people become a group of books, and a group of books become a faith and a way of life. This is how we become wise in our own understanding, not overnight. Why do you think Samson was stubborn? Because he kept getting away with stuff, being the smartest person in every room, until Delilah was smarter than him, and he underestimated his opponent. Stubbornness, like I said, is a slow poison, and Augustine drank it as, not drank it, that's probably not even appropriate. It was an IV drip for him. It was an IV drip, knocking him out bit by bit, impairing his senses, impairing his mind. And we're no different. We are no different than St. Augustine in our stubbornness. I don't care what you think about stubbornness, you are stubborn, and you are more stubborn than you think, and I am more stubborn than I think. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we got to know how and why we're stubborn. And Augustine showed us 3 places that he was stubborn. And these are the 3 places that we can be stubborn. The first is knowledge. Knowledge. I love this. St. Augustine, like I said, was a philosopher. He admired philosophers. He read Plato. He read Cicero. He read all these deep, brilliant people. Okay? And if you read the Book of Confessions, he actually, it's crazy, he makes fun of the Bible. And he says, I found the Bible significantly less intellectually stimulating than the works of Cicero and the works of Plato. He found the Bible to be childish, a collection of stories that weren't applicable, that didn't have depth to them. Who thinks the Bible's childish? Okay. Cool. Now flip it and let's ask a different question. Who thinks some of the stories in the Bible aren't relatable? Are you playing a game? Seriously? At least mute it. You got to keep a streak up. Yes, if you come to my meeting and make noise, I shame you. That's how it works. Welcome. Not sorry. How many people think the Bible's relatable? Okay. Here we go. We start getting this. Well, I'm not Moses. You're not? Moses was pretty freaking stubborn. Moses was pretty angry. Moses was impatient. Moses pissed off God. Sure you're not vibing with him? Peter. Peter was a liar. Peter had a foul mouth. Sure it's not relatable? How many times do we say, well, the Bible doesn't apply to me? Oh, Proverbs, sure. Corinthians, sure. Exodus, Leviticus, Well, they were walking with Jesus. Of course it's different. That's why the Gospels are the Gospels. Knowledge. Guys, we're becoming a society of consumption. consuming knowledge through Google, whatever different journals and news outlets, and then we're on to, let's evolve our news to TikTok and Instagram and all this other garbage that we're putting in our minds. It's a fact. You can sit in a room and be listening to somebody talk about something you don't know a thing about, and you can put that information and you'll know what that is in a second, right? Now, did you get the accurate information? I don't know. Where'd you look? What'd you get? But here's the thing that we do that makes us stubborn in our spiritual lives. What we do is we insist that we know more than everybody else around us. Our knowledge is power, but your knowledge is a problem. Your knowledge, what you know, gets in the way of what I know. And because what you know gets in the way of what I know, you need to go. This person's toxic. Why? Well, you know, they're quoting the Bible and why they're telling me that I can't do this or I can't do that. They're just not living in the real world today. People have premarital sex. It's very normal. You have to test drive your partner so you know what you're getting. Y'all be laughing, but you know you heard somebody say it in your life. They probably shouldn't have said it. Okay? It's a fact. People talk this way. You know, it's an unrelatable lifestyle. I'm not supposed to go out with my friends and drink. I'm supposed to walk around in a potato sack and not dress nice. What is this modesty that you talk about? As I have like 75 girls about to shoot me here. Hide behind the cross, come get it. All right, I'm kidding. Our foolishness is in our stubbornness. And when we always say we know better than the next person, what we are doing is telling God, whatever voice you are sending to speak to my heart, I am telling to go away because I don't need it. But when I say it like that, you don't think that. None of us do. I'm just waiting for somebody better to convince me. That was Augustine's problem. He was looking for the next person to show him truth, and the next person, and the next person. It was always the first person's fault. Monica didn't know enough. Dad was a mess anyways. I mean Saint Monica. You know, his dad was a drunk and a loser. Didn't know enough. His friends, he was smarter than. Everybody else was in his way on his path to greatness. Augustine always had a reason. Everybody wasn't as smart as him. And that's why he devalued the Bible. And guys, here's the scary thing that some of us don't acknowledge. You want God to entertain you. Our Bible is supposed to entertain us. Our stories about spirituality are supposed to entertain us. That's what we think. Well, if it doesn't get me excited, I just can't read it. Well, if it doesn't speak to my heart, I'll just pass over it. That's why every time I open my Bible, oh, okay, this is the verse for me today. Really, guys? One verse in the whole Bible is the only thing that speaks to your heart. Everything else is hot garbage because it's Tuesday and you're not feeling it. Get over yourself. Come on, man. Come on. When we talk about a relationship with God and talk about not having a stubborn heart, our time with God is not supposed to entertain us. It's supposed to enrich our lives. How we spend time with Him matters. You know that in your marriage, when you get married one day, which we all think about, your marriage doesn't entertain you every day. Sometimes your marriage is work. Your kids aren't fun all the time. Sometimes being a parent is work. Your responsibilities, you're not super excited to go to work every day. You're like, oh my God, I can't wait. It's going to be so awesome. Really? It's 6 in the morning on a Monday and you are out till 1 in the morning for whatever reason. You hate your life right now. Or your boss is impossible to deal with. Or your spouse is in a bad mood because they have their own stuff going on. Or your kid is being difficult and disrespectful. Do you know why the love of men grows cold? because we are stubborn in the expectation of what we want from others. We're stubborn. It has to look like this. It has to feel like that. And because it doesn't, I don't want it anymore. What do you mean? How do you shut God up and put him in a box? Knowledge is power, but knowledge from everywhere is power. Knowledge from godly sources is power. How many of us have in our lives those one or two people who we respect their opinions so much that when they tell us no, or rethink this, or check yourself, we check ourselves? See, here's the thing, and this is the other problem. Some of us are not, oh, no, I'm not stubborn. I have that group of people. Okay, who is it? Well, it's Captain Falafel, who takes shots with me on Thursdays, and it's Tasoni Marav Shamin, who goes out with me, and we dress like this. I mean a real Tasoni. I mean like you're just making up Tasoni, whatever. You get my point. It's always some other person that is not ready and equipped to support you and give you real knowledge, giving you street smarts. What are you talking about, man? Get over yourself. What are you talking about? Our father of confession needs to be somebody in our lives that we believe that when they tell us, yo, pump the brake, slow down, we listen. When they tell us go forward, we listen. Does that mean you don't have an intellectual, bidirectional conversation? No, you can. But if you don't have a spirit of submission to the people you ask God to speak through in your life, you are not submitting, you are sinking. You are sinking in stubbornness. We have a responsibility not to expect God to entertain us, but enrich us through the people he puts in our lives when we open the Word and read. Do I have an issue with people that open the Bible and just read a verse, whatever first comes to them? No. But that should be in addition to a Bible plan that you have with your father of confession. In addition to a prayer routine that you have. In addition to a spiritual book that you read. And every person's different. If you're not doing any of this right now, then no, I don't expect you to do all of it. But you got to do something. We have to put knowledge in order to get goodness out. Don't be obsessed with what you know alone. If you are wise and you are in your own understanding, you are dumb in the eyes of God. But he still loves you, don't worry. In the book of the Psalms, chapter 84, verses 10 through 12, he says, "For a day in your courts is better than 1,000. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the man who trusts in you." The man who trusts in you. The man who trusts in the emissaries of heaven that have been sent to you. When you open the Bible, when you sit with your father of confession, or the person in your life that you trust to tell you no, do you pray before you go in, God, give me a heart to hear what's being said, the willingness to bend? Augustine didn't for so long, and it's why he fell so far. The knowledge was the first rung of the noose around his neck, because it was about his knowledge and his knowledge alone. Stop being the smartest person in every room. The dumbest thing you can do is be the smartest person in every room. Okay? So the first thing that we do, that Augustine did, is he fell in the mistake of knowledge. That doesn't mean don't read, in case anyone's wondering, but being obsessed with only what you know and not what you can learn from others and from what God puts in your life. The second reason that Augustine was stubborn, or the second way, rather, was restraint. And this is one of my favorite things in the world. When we talk about restraint in our lives, who likes restraint? Someone tell me. Or what does restraint mean to you, first off? What does restraint mean? What do you think? Yeah. Okay, what does that mean? Holding over your desires? Tell me what you mean by that, sorry. Mm-hmm. But to go and get what you need instead of going with what you want. Simple example, ice cream. Mm-hmm. You don't need ice cream. You want. That's a lie. Everyone needs ice cream. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, your point's right. I was giving you a hard time. Absolutely. Self-control is about resistance to our desires, right? It's about being unwilling to give in to what we want and our impulse. Guys, we are an impulse culture. We're a consumption culture, and we're an impulse culture. Impulse is one of the scariest things inside of us. Yeah, it's great when it's done right, when our impulse is to avoid a dangerous situation, or our impulse convinces us not to make a mistake, when we're driving or something. But most of the time, what do our impulses lead us to do? Yell at people, fall into sin, argue with people, say the meanest thing you can because they said the meanest thing they could. Our impulses usually lead us to poor places. Very rarely will I hear someone say, well, I gave into what I was feeling, and I gave that person flowers. No, I don't think that's what you did. You might have given them a fist, I'll tell you guys a funny story. Semi-funny. Anyway, this happened recently, but I was driving somewhere to get coffee, and for those of you that know me, I love my coffee. So I was super tired, I wanted a coffee, and I was waiting to park to get into this coffee shop. And as I'm waiting, there's a truck in front of me, and the truck is taking forever. And I'm like, I've got stuff to do, I desperately need this coffee. What is this guy waiting for? I don't even see anybody that has a spot. And then I see this super tiny spot that my car can fit in. He's driving a truck. There's no way his car fits there. So I just drive around him very slowly, wave, park. I get out of the car to go get the coffee thinking it's a big win. The truck comes flying up to me, parks in front of me, in just double parks. And the guy starts walking in to a liquor store. And he looks at me, and I don't think he looks at me. I think he just says, wait your turn, man. So I was like, excuse me? I was just confused. I was like, what? Wait your turn. And I'm like, what do you mean? I really don't understand. And he turned around, and he was ready to argue. And I was like, did I do something wrong that upset you? And he froze. And he's like, well, you cut in front of me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I actually didn't mean to cut in front of you. I just didn't think you could fit there. Do you want me to back out and give you the spot? And it was the funniest thing because it was like the biggest U-turn I've ever seen. He's like, no, Father, don't even worry about... This guy about to throat punch me 17 seconds ago is ready to have a real conversation. He's like, no, it's okay. You're good. Thank you so much. I guess I just kind of got worked up in the moment. And I'm like, nah, man, it's all good. And I dabbed him up and I walked away and I'm thinking I thought I was going to die for a second. I was like, this is just, I'm good thing I took communion because it's going down. Now, go back 5 years, I'm young and irrationally confident. I might have said something else. At that time, I was like, what's going on? How you react in the moment dictates the outcomes you get. Restraint is everything. When we are stubborn, we don't have restraint. When we are stubborn, we expect everyone else to have restraint except us because we are justified in our lack of self-control. We're justified. I am right. I have a reason to be mad at this dumb priest for cutting past me, even though my car takes up 7 spots and his takes up 1/4 of one. What is, bro? It's all good. The point is, when you react, when you give in to what you feel, you are not being smart. You are doing what your body calls you to, not what your spirit encourages you to do. How many times are we in a bad relationship, in a difficult situation in our lives, with our family, with work, with something, and everybody's like, hey, just slow down. Don't do what you're feeling. Think about this. Yeah, get in the car and drive. What the? Where are you going? I gotta go. I gotta go do this. I gotta go fix this relationship. I gotta go fix this problem at work. I gotta go call this person out. I gotta tell this person, speak my truth. I've got another thing I always have to do. I don't have to be restrained. Everyone else does. This is stubbornness. This is foolishness. And all of us do it. Augustine just paved the way. He's like, no. The next pleasure will make me happy. No. It's just the girl. No. It's just intimacy. No. It's just the kid out of wedlock. No. It's just drinking. No. It's just arrogance. It's not a big deal. Guys, we cannot become the ones that justify ourselves. When we are stubborn and don't have restraint, we slowly suffocate our spiritual lives. Do you think that if you justify your anger, you'll be less angry later? When people do worse things to you and push more of your buttons? No. Do you think you'll be less lustful? Well, this is one of my favorites. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm just fooling around with this person, but I'm going to marry them. Okay, that didn't go anywhere. And now the next relationship, but I'll be good in this one. How? What did you do differently? When you don't learn to control your flesh, you're going to control it later? You know, there was, Abuna told a really, he gave me an awesome example. I've shared it in this group before, but I'll share it again. If a guy marries his spouse, and in one universe, he is pure and they restrain themselves and they don't do anything given to their body at all. Okay? And then in the other universe, they're intimate before marriage. And then in both universes, the man has to go away for 3 months, deployed somewhere. The girl trusts which man? The one who was pure and resisted their body, giving into their body? Or the one who gave in all the time? Every time, it's the person who was pure because they've demonstrated restraint. They are not stubborn. They realize they are weak. And to keep up walls from what can break me is what builds a ladder for me toward heaven. We have a responsibility as Christians to live a life of restraint. Augustine said something ridiculous, actually. One of his famous quotes is, "Give me chastity, Lord, but not yet." like I was looking, like I have a thing of his quotes, you know, and I read them every now and then, and I look stuff up, and then I see this one, I'm like, why is this even in here? But this was a prayer. He wasn't ready to change. Guys, what are you not ready to change? What are you not ready to change? What are you stubborn about? Are there friendships that are toxic in your life that need to change, that don't lift you up but pull you away? Are there activities that we do that don't bring us closer to God but bring us further? Are we ready to change those? Do we have to have what we want, or do we want to have what honors God? Do we have to have what we want, or can we want to honor God with what we want? And a lot of that, guys, just so you know, all of this stubbornness here is about maturity. People ask me many times, how do I know I'm ready for marriage? And one of the things I always ask them is, what are you ready to give up and die for? What are you ready to die for? You can die for your passions? You're going to die for the things you want? Or are you going to die for someone? You die for God, and then for your partner. That's an evolution in your mind. In the book of 1 Corinthians 13, the famous chapter on love, 11 and 12 are sometimes overlooked, but it says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I misunderstood. I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. These verses tell us how you know you have the spirit of restraint and that stubbornness is not suffocating you. When you are stubborn, it is childish. The only thing we should be stubborn about is that we are going to have a relationship with God come hell or high water. That is it. That even when life sucks, God will still be in our lives and we will make him a part of our lives. That even when life is hard, we will still call on God. That is what you can be stubborn about. Everything else relationally in your life, related to our passions, those things should not be non-negotiable. Because when they are, you alienate God. God, I need this. Well, if you need that more than you need me, then you definitely need Jesus. Right? So what do we see here? The first thing that he was stubborn about was knowledge. The second thing he was stubborn about was restraint. And the last thing that he was stubborn about, St. Augustine was stubborn about love. Well, Abuna, isn't that a good thing? Let's talk about this. When you think about love, what is love? What is love? In case anybody knows how to read. Love suffers long. It's kind. It does not envy, does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. So can you be stubborn in love? Not a godly love. Because if you are stubborn and love is a part of your life, guess what? Love doesn't seek its own. Stubbornness is seeking your own. And Augustine was stubborn in love. Augustine wanted to be loved the way he wanted to be loved. He told St. Monica, stop nagging me about this Jesus of yours and accept me the way I am. I'm tired of it. He continuously ignored every plea his mother gave him to come to the truth. St. Augustine was stubborn about love because he didn't understand love. Who did Augustine suffer for? Himself. Who was Augustine kind to? People that were kind to him, not ones that are unkind. Did he envy? Absolutely. He talked about being jealous multiple times of the intelligence of others, of the success and accolades of others, of other people who had relationships with women. He was constantly comparing. Doesn't parade itself. This guy was a peacock for most of his career. He wanted everybody to see him. Rudely? No, he was rude. If you were dumb, he let you know about it. The point is, when you think about love in your life, you say, no. Abuna, I'm not stubborn about love. Okay, ask yourself a question. Are you stubborn about the relationship that you're in? Are you stubborn about that? Do you insist it has to be this person? It has to be right now. Are you stubborn about what God has to do to show that he loves you in his life, in your life? I have to get this job. My parents have to be okay. This has to happen. This is the way I know you love me. If that sounds like you, demanding that God does something in your life, then you are more stubborn about love than you think. Your love is not patient. Your love is not kind. And that is why your love is loss. It's why we lose, because we insist. We are inflexible, extremely inflexible when it comes to our hearts. What I want, when I want it, that's what matters, God. And he's like, what if what you want when you want it isn't when you need it and what you need? God, you're so funny, as though you know better than me about what makes me happy. Do you see how happy I am in this relationship? Do you see how happy I am in this situation? Do you know how happy I would be if you gave me this thing? And he's like, you might be temporarily happy, but are you going to change? Are you going to grow? Are you going to become the man or the woman you're meant to be? No. No, you won't. Love suffers long. We suffer in love. St. Monica demonstrated a love that Augustine didn't understand. For those that know the story of St. Monica, she followed her son for over 20 years, trying to convert him. She would go everywhere he was. He was in Carthage, she went to Carthage. He was in Rome, she went to Rome. Milan, she went to Milan. And she cried at the feet of St. Ambrose and said, please save my son. But here's the cool thing about Augustine. I'm telling you, he was stubborn that this killed him, right? When Augustine finally wakes up, do you know what he realizes? He realizes that his stubbornness about how he was supposed to be loved is what was killing him. And instead of looking at St. Monica as nagging him, there's a beautiful section of the book where he pours out this intense admiration for his mother. His mother, when he realized that her tears were the things that watered the soil of his heart. Her tears watered the soil of his heart. And when that suffering and that dissatisfaction that he had in his life, looking for the next thing always, he realized that's not love. What I want isn't love. I wanted my mom to change when I needed to. Guys, when you look at people in your life who you care about, stop asking yourself what they have to do differently to fit into your life. What are you going to change? What has to break inside you to create room for people in God and to honor God? What has to break inside you? Well, Abuna, I have a limit. Yeah, everybody has a limit. But stop telling God what your limits are and let God show you what your limits are. Augustine says something beautiful. He says, the measure of love is to love without measure. And it's because he experienced it. He was loved without measure. How many of us realize that we are loved without measure by God? How many of us are willing to love without measure, to forgive those who have hurt us? Not reconcile, forgive. I'm not explaining it again. I've explained enough times. Forgive. How many of us are ready to be pure because we love others and live a good life to honor the ones that came before us and the ones we want to promise ourselves to? These are the ways that we live love. These are the ways. And Augustine says another thing that I just can't get over. He says there's only two basic loves: the love of God unto the forgetfulness of self, or the love of self unto the forgetfulness and denial of God. When we love to honor God, we are no longer stubborn. We are strong because we love like him. And it was when Augustine finally confronted his stubbornness that his heart shattered. All the reasons that he thought he would be happy, power, money, women, they continued to anger and disappoint him. And he looked at what angered and disappointed him, his mother, his upbringing, all the few things he had. And funny enough, those things that at one time angered and disappointed him were the things that eternally brought him rest. And in the book of Confessions, Augustine tells us the story of how he was converted. He said, I had gone into a garden, and I had put down there the book of Romans. I snatched it up, and I opened it, and I read in silence the passage on which my eyes first lighted, meaning he went, not in dissipation and drunkenness, nor in debauchery and lewdness, nor in arguing and jealously, but put on the Lord Christ, and make no provision for the flesh or the gratification of your desires. It's Romans 12. And Augustine then says, I had no wish to read further, nor was there a need. No sooner had I reached the end of this verse that the light of certainty flooded my heart, and all the dark shades of doubt fled away. When we make the choice not to be stubborn, not to insist, God, this person, this career path, this way, my parents do this, my friends do that, give me, give me, give me. When we stop telling God how life is supposed to be and start asking him how life should be and following the path he called us to, this is when our stubbornness shatters. And without a shadow of a doubt, we are convicted and confident that wherever we go and whatever we do, we will not do it alone, because the Lord has brought us to it and he will bring us through it. So to sum it up, the three ways that Augustine demonstrated stubbornness and we demonstrate stubbornness: knowledge, don't tell God to entertain you. Have an open heart to be enriched by everything and everyone. He had no restraint. Be restrained in who you're around and what you choose to do. Do the things that honor him. And Augustine was stubborn in love, that he told everyone how to love him instead of asking God, help me love everyone the way you love me. May each one of us be the servants who shape our hearts and our lives on God's answers and not the other way around. May we be ready to bend our hearts to him, to bury our stubbornness in the song of his strength, knowing that in this beautiful season, you will change if you give it all to him. And glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. All right. Questions, comments, concerns? Yep, Andy.
Would you say that there is a good stubborn? If so, how do you know when there is when
Yeah.
stubborn is good or bad?
So, Abuna Bulis talked about this on our grad retreat. It was really awesome. He talked about stubbornness versus determination. Determination is a good stubbornness. To be convicted on a path. You're not doing that unilaterally. One of the best ways to know if you're being stubborn or you're being determined is, are you being guided? If you are running one-on-one, no guidance, no feedback, just do what you want, you're being stubborn. If you are determined, then you are marching toward a goal. But you understand that if every door slams, and at some point it's time to call it and to pivot. So there's not necessarily a good stubbornness, because good stubbornness equals determination and faithfulness, which we know is okay. The best way to know if you're being stubborn or determined is, like I said, whether or not you're being led and guided and helped. But the other part of it is, why are you doing it? Many of you have heard me say this before. There are not right and wrong decisions necessarily in the world. There are God decisions and not God decisions. And when I make God choices in my life, that God, I want to honor you. Like, for example, a career path. You know, you're not getting into med school, you're not getting into law school, you want this specific job, you want this specific whatever. Are you praying, God, I want to glorify you this way? If it's from you, shut it. Or if it's from you, open it. If it's not, shut it. And you do everything you can. You exhaust every resource that you have. And if the door doesn't open, then you know. It's very rare that you know that you're being stubborn based on the outcome until later. But on the front end, you know you're being stubborn if you don't want to hear anybody else, especially someone who's been through it, who's gone through it, who's experienced it. Emba Yusuf in the Southern Diocese tells us something awesome. He says, those who learn from experience are wise, but those who learn from the experiences of others are saints. Good question. Anybody else? Questions? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. So the question over here is for those that are asking, or for those that didn't hear, is how do you listen to somebody that doesn't necessarily have a foundation in Christ, right? You want to clarify it if I missed something? Mm-hmm. Best way to do is cross-reference it with someone who's godly, right? Like, for example, if you have if your father of confession is telling you, this is a bad relationship, I'm going to ask a different Abuna. I got nothing for you, you know what I mean? No, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, exactly, like a parent. This is a very common one. Unfortunately, this is still on, but whatever, I don't care. Sometimes parents, listen, true story. Parents are always right, okay? Sorry to tell you. They're always right. It's how they deliver the rightness that's usually wrong. They're awful about it. You're just stupid. Just do what I said. It would be fine. Why? Why have to talk to me? Why do I have to feel like an idiot to agree with you? Why does it have to be the case? Come on. Be nice. Just talk to me like a human, right? I've done this before a million times. Okay, man, chill. But listen, when it's a parent, still cross-reference it with your father of confession. Hey, they don't want me to do this. For example, if you're talking, I always go back to things that are easy, like relationship or career, okay? They don't want you to go into a career they think you're not going to make any money. Okay? Well, did you do your homework? Did you find a path to get there? Why do you believe so firmly in it? Here's the thing. I'll tell you guys all this, and I'm sure there are parents who will shoot me when I say it. I don't feel bad for saying this. If you believe in what you're doing and you're passionate about it, you will find a way to be successful in what you care about. You will. Now, do I advocate for, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to bite my tongue. I'm going to hold that. So I held the last part. But the other thing, in relationships, they may say to you, don't be with this person. But their reasons are family, socioeconomic status, these things, not Christian. No problem saying that. Don't care who heard me say it. Okay? Those things don't matter. But someone might not be compatible with you because where they came from, maybe they suffered in a way that has created walls and barriers that you're not equipped to support because of the way that you grew up. Family of origin plays a role in the psychology of a relationship. That's a fact. How you've learned to deal with conflict, suffering, pain, the boundaries that are set in your home versus someone else's. So they may be wrong in how they're saying it, but they're probably right on why they think it. You cross-reference it with a spiritual guide if you feel like the person's not leading you on a spiritual path. If I'm not here next week, all of you know why. Your parents kidnapped me and killed me. Or they put me, you guys won't kill me, I know. No one wants to go to jail. That's what it's about. Other questions? Going once. Going twice. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, if I don't get 3 questions, there's always a takeaway, so someone gets picked on. Going once. Going twice. Someone become a question. White hoodie. Right in front. Yep, nice try looking behind you. Yep, right. Steve? I picked on you last time. You know, maybe you're right. I can't see that far. So get the one behind you. Go. Paul. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Okay, cool. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. I had a thought, if you guys are okay with it, and I don't really care if you're okay with it, just don't come next week if you're not. Um, we sat with a lot today. We processed a lot. I want to take 30 seconds. Everybody, I'm going to turn the lights off, close our eyes, and let's ask ourselves, God, what am I stubborn in my life that I need to figure out, that I need to get better about? It'll be 30 seconds, and then we'll pray, okay? So we'll start now.